from Taiwan. I'm Tiffany Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. In a major turnaround, U.S. President Donald Trump has put a 90-day pause on his so-called reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries. The tariffs announced a week ago were to, quote, liberate the U.S. from what Trump says is other countries taking advantage of them. The pause excludes China, which now faces an increased 125% levy from the U.S. Let's get more from Joyce Tseng, who has been following developments for us from our newsroom in Taipei. Joyce, why is Trump issuing this pause now, and is Taiwan included?
Right, it's a significant shift in Trump's policy. Look, earlier this week, there were rumors that the U.S. would pause the tariffs. That caused U.S. markets to briefly bounce back, but that rumor was quickly shut down by the White House and markets sunk back down. But now we're hearing it from Trump himself. He's paused a slew of higher tariffs on roughly 60 countries, which includes Taiwan, lowering them to 10% for 90 days. Now, this morning, Taiwanese officials have said that this gives them some breathing room to negotiate.
A sharp turn after days of market turmoil. U.S. President Donald Trump pauses the sweeping so-called reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries, levies that sent stocks across the world tumbling. Trump saying he wrote up the new policy after thinking about it over the last few days.
We wrote it up from our hearts, right? We don't want to hurt countries that don't need to be hurt, and they all want to negotiate. The only problem is, you can only do so many at one time.
Earlier this week, the White House said around 70 countries had already reached out to strike a deal. Taiwan, which has been bracing for a 32% tariff on most of its goods going to the U.S., had offered to start negotiations on the basis of zero tariffs. President Lai Ching-te already ruling out retaliatory tariffs. Speaking to lawmakers, Foreign Minister Lin Jialong confirmed that Taiwan is among those to get the 90-day reprieve.
你们有没有去确认台湾是不是这些被暂停的 some countries？ 我们有没有在那里面？有确认了吗？
是。Ling says Taiwan is prepared to negotiate with the added time and address Taiwan's large trade surplus with the U.S., a trade imbalance Trump has criticized.
我们也一方面做好了各种方案的准备。行政院基于我国家安全及利益，已经完成盘点对农工 石油、天然气等产品的大量采购计划。
As for support for local small and medium-sized firms, Economy Minister J.W. Guo says the cabinet's proposed $2.7 billion aid package will not change and will go through as planned in the coming days.
照顾产业的态度是不变的。
Despite changes to U.S. policy, Taiwan says its priority to safeguard the economy and the country's interests remains the same, and that it's ready to negotiate with Washington at any time.
Trade negotiator Yan Huixing says Taiwan is using multiple channels to try and get these talks set up. She says that Taiwan has reached out to the U.S. Treasury, the Commerce Department, and Trade Agency. She says Taiwan is on the list for talks, but as to when that will be or whether other countries will have priority over Taiwan, officials today still say that they'll have to wait and see, but that they're proactively approaching their U.S. counterparts.
Thank you, Joyce. That was Joyce Tseng live from our newsroom. This is a developing story, so be sure to follow TaiwanPlus for the latest. Let's get more on Donald Trump's 90-day tariff pause. It's brought some relief to global markets that experienced a week of volatility. But China is excluded from the pause, and that's escalating a trade war between the world's two biggest economies. Rosie Greninger reports.
Stocks on Wall Street surge as Donald Trump suddenly reversed what he called reciprocal tariffs against countries across the globe. The US president had last week imposed higher taxes on dozens of America's trade partners, bringing the total rate for some countries to over 50%. But after a week of turbulence in the exchange and fears of a recession, Trump announced a 90-day break to allow room for negotiations.
I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it.
All countries will now be subject to the same baseline 10% tariff rate, except China. Trump has zeroed in on the world's second largest economy, hiking levies to 125%, effective immediately. That's after Beijing fought back, introducing their own 84% retaliatory levies against Washington, accusing the US of bullying.
美方仍在对中国滥施关税，一味地进行极限施压，对这种霸道霸凌行径，中方坚决反对，绝不接受。美方如果真的想通过对话谈判解决问题，就应该拿出平等、尊重、互惠的态度。
China has filed a second complaint with the World Trade Organization, telling the international regulator the tariffs threaten to destabilize global trade. The country has also attempted to make alliances with other countries, urging Australia to join forces, an offer Canberra has declined. That's as global markets rebounded after Trump paused tariffs, with Australian and Asian markets tracking gains.
I think everybody's breathing a sigh of relief because it's been extremely chaotic for the last few days. Obviously, this leaves us with at least 90 days of slightly more stability than we've had, which is great. I think it puts investors in a position where they can hopefully reset, regroup, and probably rebalance.
Trump's aides say the 90-day pause will allow world leaders time to bargain with the US. More than 70 countries are in contact with the Trump administration, looking to secure a deal.
This was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate.
Trump continues to insist China wants to make a deal with the US, despite the country vowing to fight until the end. And with unprecedented levies imposed against each other, the tit-for-tat measures will continue to have global impacts. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Asian stock markets have followed gains on Wall Street after Donald Trump suspended his so-called reciprocal tariffs on all countries except China. Stock indexes in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Shenzhen are all up despite an increase in U.S. levies on the country and Beijing's own retaliatory tariffs. While in Taiwan, the TAIEX saw one of the biggest gains in Asia, closing up 9%. Japan's Nikkei and South Korea's Kospi have also rebounded. Taiwan Central Bank governor says despite the gains, much uncertainty remains in the market. China's military is slamming a recent U.S. fighter jet delivery to Taiwan, saying that Washington can't change the balance of power in the Taiwan Strait. A spokesman for China's military was referring to the first plane out of 66 of the latest F-16 fighter jets that will be delivered to Taiwan before 2026. China says the weapon sale hurts stability in the Taiwan Strait, adding that Beijing will continue to prevent the U.S. from interfering in what it calls its internal affairs. The first F-16V fighter jet was presented to Taiwan in March in the U.S. state of South Carolina. Taiwan's Deputy Defense Minister for Policy was there. The top U.S. military officer in the Indo-Pacific says China is outproducing the United States in air, maritime, and missile capabilities. Testifying at the House Armed Services Committee, Admiral Samuel Papero says that China's military operations around Taiwan have tripled in 2024. He went on to say that those aren't just exercises, but rehearsals for forced unification. Defense officials at the hearing say that China is looking to dominate the Indo-Pacific region and replace the United States as the world's most powerful nation. Over 10,000 Chinese spouses living in Taiwan are at risk of losing their status. Taiwan requires that Chinese nationals applying for a Taiwanese ID card must first give up their household registration in China. Taiwan's immigration agency found over 10,000 Chinese spouses have yet to submit such proof, and it's giving them a 3-month deadline to do so. Officials say they're trying to find a solution for people who struggle to get such documentation.
如果民众有无法实际上克服的这个困难， 没有办法顺利取得所谓丧失原籍证明的文件。那移民署设有一个服务的电子信箱，
然后呢，
我们22个服务站，也都开放，让这些民众来反映说他的个案的问题。
Residency rights for Chinese spouses in Taiwan are under the spotlight after 3 people had their residencies revoked in March. The government says they posted social media videos supporting China using force to take over Taiwan. Advocates are calling for stronger sexual privacy laws as cases of image-based sexual violence rise in Taiwan. A recent report from the Modern Women's Foundation cites government data as showing 1 in 15 people have been affected by this in recent years. They had intimate images taken without their consent through coercion or through deepfakes. In 2024, Taiwanese police looked into just over 3,200 suspects in such cases. Only 187 were convicted, about 6%. The foundation is now calling for stricter laws punishing those who possess or buy these images. For more on the impact of image and digital-based sexual violence, I spoke to Ting Zheng, an artist who recently held an exhibit in Taipei focusing on the topic.
So as you're making this exhibition, I know you're trying to educate viewers, but also for you, what did you learn from your research?
What I was quite shocked about, it was also sometimes, again, I think this is based on every precinct, every city, every country, it's not generalization, but sometimes how police reacting to certain things like that. Like I heard stories on how police were, some of them, of course, were dismissive about cases like that. They feel like, well, there's nothing you can do. And also, I think the other thing is how, I'm going to use the word outdated in a way our laws aren't. Like especially cyber crimes, like deepfakes, things like that. It's really not much of a organized regulation about this, and I think we really need to catch up with the situation, and we need to evaluate the harm because in Taiwan we have this cases like, oh, I just used your face to make deepfake porn, so I didn't rape you, I didn't expose your nudity, and how do we find crimes like that, and also. Like, I think there's also very subtleties like, oh, are you profiting? So as if only you're profiting, there will be a crime from it, But I think it's very complicated. There's a lot of harms are done. So I feel like, first, I really think as a society, we need to be less judgmental, just as a whole, And also, I think the laws really need to catch up with the situation.
What kind of change do you hope your exhibition can bring?
Sometimes I think I can be a bit pessimistic, I admit. Like, I think in a most ideal world, I really hope this work can reach to people who didn't know this area that well, who didn't think commenting on female or male celebrities' appearance, judging them, doubting their, if it's plastic surgery or not, or slut shaming people. I think to reach the one behind the person running the website and like change his or her, well, mostly his, let's be honest, like this behavior, I think it's really too utopian. That's not going to happen. But I really hope I can reach to people who think they are making, oh, it doesn't matter if I just click on this link to watch it. It doesn't matter, I just comment on this comment. They're celebrity, they should be used to attack. I think these people, I'm hoping, if the works can reach to them, to realize that, just sometimes have a second doubt before you do a certain action. And also just don't judge people who did.
That was artist Ting Zheng. You can watch the full interview on Zoom In, Zoom Out at TaiwanPlus.com. Former Taiwan People's Party chair Wen-je is appearing in court. Ko was indicted last year on corruption charges. The former Taipei city mayor was originally granted bail, but prosecutors believe he and his co-defendants pose a flight risk and may tamper with evidence. Ko has been held incommunicado since September. He recently appealed his continued detention on medical grounds. The High Court rejected his appeal. Prosecutors are seeking a sentence of up to 28 years in prison. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.